Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this special Lockheed TriStar live stream. I hope you can hear me okay, and if you can't, I've got the live chat open on my other PC so that you can just shout out. So this flight got a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is, what is the name of this song? Well, I think it's called like Beat Your Competition or something like that. And second question is, will this be the iniBuilds L-1011 or a previous one? So the thing is, iniBuilds have not released the L-1011 yet, but I actually got a shout out during their live stream for actually making L-1011 knowledgeable videos. So what happened was basically we were at the Twitch L-1011 live stream, and I was watching it, and everyone was watching it all together and they were going through it. So, anyway, they said basically that it's coming out this month. So, this month is what are we now, the 21st. So, in 10 days, it has to come out. So, they said that you better get L-1011 savvy, get L-1011 knowledge, and acquire all this knowledge. So, a couple of people started asking in the chat, where do we get this knowledge from? So I said, I actually make a couple of videos in case anyone's interested. So that's what the surprising part is, where Chewy actually came on line and he said that, we got Joshua757 here, and shout out to his channel for making L-1011 videos. And it seems that he actually is seeing has seen actually some of my videos. So that was a real honor, and it was really nice. Hello, welcome to the chat, 321 Aviation. And I'm quite glad actually that the video got pushed back by an hour so that you could come and join us. Right, so what is the purpose of today's live stream? Well, it's to get acquired with the L-1011 and to ask any questions you might have. So here we are in a British Airways L-1011. This is the L-1011 Series 100, which is not actually that different from the 500. The 500 basically is shorter, it's stubbier, and has a bit more range, other than a couple of things such as the boost pumps and so on. So the L-1011 500 has more boost pumps, yeah. And it does have a couple more features, not much. It's virtually identical to every other L-1011. So let us get started then. So I'm going to power the aircraft up and we're going to do a rigorous flight test series. And if you saw my 747 flight test series last week, you'll know that how rigorous it's going to be. So I'm just going to load up a couple of things. So we're going from London Heathrow Airport to Manchester. So we'll just select short haul, passengers, low quantity, and cargo also low. I don't know if you can see this little EFB, or if you can't, then just bear with me for one moment. So definitely want to be in kilograms for this kind of stuff. And let's see, what is our fuel? About 10,000. Okay. Actually, I want to add more fuel. I want to do some jettison as well to show you how that works. So let's add on about 20,000. Like so. And let's load that in. Anyway, so the first thing I want to do is I want to power up the aircraft. So I need to come over here to the flight engineer's deck, and I want to check my battery volts. So I'm going to flip on the battery and check the battery volts, and it is more than enough, so it's a good thing we used the battery. And let's toggle the external power like so. And finally, what I want to do is I want to check my standby power. So If I go over here and let's arm the standby power, and we can then check the standby power flow bar is working. There we go. Standby power is on. And we also have another light over here called battery condition. So that basically means that the standby power source is the battery. That's why you get that warning. Another situation where you get this warning is if the battery is actually overheated. So that's kind of useful. Right, so now we can come over here and see the external power available light is on. So let's toggle that. And if we check our external power over here, you can see it's within range, 115 volts, 400 hertz. So yeah. And finally, one last thing we need to do is power up the essential bus. So that is down here. All you need to do is just put it in the 12 o'clock normal position. Like so. We can adjust our lighting if necessary, which is down here. Let's do that. So there we go, nice and powered up. Still a bit dark in here. Let's get some cockpit lights on. There we go. Stuff is starting to light up now. Let's get the floodlight on. There we go, nice and bright. And if we come over here to the overhead, there's a couple more lights. So you can turn this on. And over here also. And we do have a bit of dome lighting as well. There we go. So now we got a nice and bright cockpit. Okay, so yeah. So a couple of things I want to check out is, remember the essential bus we talked about? If I turn it to the off position, you can see the essential bus fail light. So, and that then extinguishes. So a couple of things we need to take note of now is, we'll go through everything, and if anyone has any questions, just ask. Yeah. So, right. So let's get the alignment started. So I have a shortcut over here. Go to INS and let's enter in the present position. So we go to standby. That allows for a quick warm up of the INS. And we need to now enter in our present position. So let us do that now. So I'm just going to my SimBrief flight plan and we'll just enter that in. So we are at gate 421 at Heathrow Airport. So yeah, let's go down. So ramp position north 51287. Insert and west 277. There we go. So that's the present position done and cross-checked. So now we can change our mode selector unit to align. So you pull it out and put it to align, like so. So then while that takes place, we'll go on with our cockpit flows. Also want to make sure the parking brakes are engaged. And we do actually have a way to boost up parking accumulation pressure using these two AC driven pumps. Now a couple of things I want to check once the iniBuilds L-1011 comes out is, do these AC driven pumps need to be on the whole time or not? Or is just one session sufficient for, say, about 10 hours, like in the Airbus A300? So now if we go over to the INS again, just want to enter in the waypoint. So let's go to the waypoints, waypoint 1. And the first waypoint is going to be Welland, so north 52148. insert, and west 511. There we go. Waypoint number 2 is a very short route, so not too many waypoints. North 52420. Insert west 1184. There we go. And then, yeah, waypoint number 3, which is actually the Trent VOR, north 53032. So north 53032. Insert west 1402. There we go. So that's our 3 waypoints, and just going to wait for the alignment. If we go to the status page, we can see our accuracy is still 7. It needs to come down to about 5 if you want to be ready for nav. So we'll just hide that away for the time being and let us press on. You can also adjust the first officer's lighting over here if you wanted to. So lighting is quite intuitive on the L-1011. It's right next to you. Anyway, so let us proceed then with the overhead. So coming over here to the overhead, it's not too much you need to do actually. So we want to make sure that our DLC and all this FCES flight control electronic system monitoring is engaged. So for example, if the DLC was off like this, you need to cycle it back on. This follows a cold and dark kind of layout like the MD-11. So if a light is off, that means it's in the whatever the normal position, whether that's on or an auto or whatever. So something to keep in mind. Now the stabilizer inop warnings is because we don't have hydraulics established yet. So once we have hydraulics, then that will all settle out. Anti-skid, we can test it and just keep it pushed in, yeah, because and as soon as the parking brake is released, it actually automatically arms. Right, so coming over here, center flood, we can adjust the lighting if we wanted to. Rudder limiter and all that we don't have to worry about. Similar to the PFCS and the FCES, there's 2 monitoring systems, and if one fails, the other one automatically comes on. You can do CVR test, erase, whatever. Also, you can see our ready nav lights have come on, so that basically means that the INS is ready. Our accuracy index has come to 5 or below, so just go to nav. There we go. Also coming over here, we want our position lights on for the time being, and yeah, that's all good. The eyebrow panel is quite essential. We have our emergency lights over here, which are currently in the armed position. We can also turn them off, but then you get this warning over here that says unarmed. So if you see this warning, just remember to arm your emergency lights. Standby power also needs to be armed. We check that during our power up. And we can also put our seatbelt signs, no smoking on. And coming over here, we also want to check our windshield heats and all that is engaged. So just press it in, latch it in. That's the terminology on the L-1011. If you want something depressed in, it's called latch. And we can also test a couple of things. Over here, we can test the stall warning. So if I press this down, you can see the stick shaker. And similarly, we can test our wing anti-icing and so on just by putting them on firstly and then testing them like so. Right, so coming down over here, make sure your essential master radios are on as well. The lights are off when they are on. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need for the overhead. So Let's go to the flight engineer's deck now. We've got a couple of things to test out. So let's do our fire extinguisher test coming up over here. We can do a short test like so, and also just test them in general. Also fire detection loop system for the engines and APU. We've got to depress both down. Like so. There we go. APU is firing up. Also look at the overhead. The fire handles for engines 1, 2, and 3. And also look at the master warning, fire push to reset over here. And also, yeah, that's pretty much it. So we can do bell cut out like so. And that's a good test. So let's resume that back to normal position. We also have a nacelle pylon overheat detection test. You just have to press them and test out loop A and B. We also have engine cooling air. You just test them like so. There you go. Overheat lights are on. And that all checks out. Well, wheel fire test. So just hold both loops A and B down. There you go. Also checking out over here the master warning. And yeah, that's a successful test. There we go. So that test is successful. And if you come over here to the hydraulic system, we can check our air turbine monitors, set them to the test position, and that tests the overspeed and so on. And these need to be off for before start. Because once you turn on the APU air, these need to be off, otherwise it might take APU air and use them for their air-driven pumps. So other than that, we do have PTUs as well, so we can test those. So turn the AC-driven pumps on and then turn the PTUs on. There we go. All 4 hydraulic systems are now pressurized. And of course, the output of electric pumps is a lot less than the engine-driven. That's why it's only like 1000 psi versus 3000 if you had engine driven. So that all checks out. Coming over here to the electrics, need to ensure that the galley power is on, and if it was off you would see this off light like that, so just turn it back on. Also, electrics is quite intuitive, as you can imagine. We have the APU right now is powering the sync bus, and all the bus ties are closed as illustrated by the flow bars over here. And yeah, the essential bus is also in the norm position. The essential bus, basically, you can go manual as well. In the auto position, it tells you where it's getting its source from with the initial, this is bus 3, and this is also bus tie number 3, and this is generator 1. And you also have your fallback sources as well in parentheses. So if bus 3 was to fail, then it would automatically take the power from generator 1 and so on. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can also go manual as well. And unless you are a dedicated flight engineer, I would not recommend going manual. So how much fuel have we got today? So we set this up initially, so total fuel, it's in pounds. You can also do a fuel quantity test, like so. And basically, the fuel system is quite intuitive as well. You have tanks 1 and 3. They feed engines 1 and 3. And the 2 outboard tanks, tanks 2 left and tanks 2 right, they feed engine number 2 via a flow equalizer. So right now, we can just go tank to engine, because the 2 outboards, when you sum them up, 7 and 7 equals 14, so everything checks out. You can also test our crossfeed and transit lights, like so. the little blue flow bars, and all checks out. The boost pumps, they're all working. That's why you can see the flow bar. If you wanted to, you can just shut them off for now because we still have a couple of things to do before engines start. And if you come over here to the fuel used, right now they're all zeros, but if you had some value, you could just do fuel used reset. So just press and hold this down until you get zeros. Right, so coming over here, we can come to the pneumatic section. Very intuitive. We have our engine bleed control up here. This is the high pressure bleed valves, which are right now they're armed for automatic use. So if they were off like this, you just want to return them back on. They need to be armed if you want to make use of your air-driven pumps, which take over during high loads activities such as gear retraction. Other than that, we do have our cross bleeds, which are automatically latched in. Also, we need to make sure that our pack flows are latched in as well. At least one should be latched in when you open up APU bleed. Otherwise, that can cause problems. Also, we have the turbine bypass cooler. Ram air doors, they're fully open. And you'll see the turbine bypass coolers in action when we get our APU bleed on. So other than that, we have our temperature control, which I just want to set in the 12 o'clock position for now. And we have our zone switches as well. We can control whether the bleed air actually enters these zones, such as the galley, aft cabin, mid cabin, forward, and flight station. So that all checks out. We also have this ground switch over here, which allows for rapid warm-up of the aircraft if it was cold soaked. And yeah, we can also do our area overheat test like so, and just check out that the warnings are working. And also over here as well, you can see the objective element was flashing, and that's a good test. So we're going to cancel the test for now. There we go. So coming over here, we can also check our engine vibration levels. Make sure one pickup selector is on and just keep in the norm. There's not too much you need to do about that. Also checking our engine oil quantities, all checked out. Engine temperature, oil temperature ratings, all okay. Fuel control amplifiers, just keep them in the norm position. Fuel jettison, all closed up. All good. Right, so coming over here to the pressurization. Our flight altitude today is about 20,000 feet, so we can dial that in. Also, we can do our ground check. So if you go to ground check, you can see the outflow valves are closing and opening again. That's the whole check. And yep, that's all good. Set that to the normal position. And yeah, we can also check the manual operation of the outflow valves, put them to manual. That arms the spring-loaded switches, and we can check out the manual as well. But for now on the ground, the auto actually just keeps them open just like any other aircraft. Avionics airflow bars, there's nothing too much you need to do over here as well. Just keep them all latched in. Now coming over here to the APU control, it's about time we start our APU. So all we need to do really is just turn APU master on, and that connects electrical power to the APU. Like so. Notice the field has come alive, and all we need to do then is also notice APU fire shutdown is automatically armed. Just press APU start. Doors in transit, you can see over here. And now our APU is going to spool up. So the APU has pulled up and EGT is still rising. We can also see our APU air mode. It's in minimum mode right now. It can be normal as well. Well, max mode is a very temporary mode. Okay, you have to spring load your way there. It spring loads yourself back, so you have to hold it if you really want a maximum air. Now, turning on the APU bleed automatically turns the backs on, opens the isolations, and you can also see the turbine bypass coolers have gone to the 11 o'clock, actually the 12 o'clock position, like so. And you can also see that it all checks out really. And it's a very neat system. There's not too much you need to do about this. Coming over here to pressurization, I said I would put in my flight altitude today, which is 20,000 feet. Actually, let's keep it 25,000 feet. Anyway, so that all checks out, and we need to do our oval test right now. So oval warning test, you just hold this down and test each segment. So that's the overspeed warning, altitude alert. And the test, it all checks out. So that's pretty much all you need to do with the L-1011, in all honesty. We also have a slap monitor as well, which all these things will test out during the actual flight test. So overhead is done. Now coming over here to the instruments. Let's check our AFCS warnings and cancel it. Also check our AFCS modes, like so. Also check our markers. Decision high, I'll blank out for the time being. And yeah, there's not too much actually need to do. Instrument transfer switches are all okay. They're all in their dark position. If we wanted to take the first officers, for example, we could go press the alternate, like so. Also, yeah, so everything looks okay. Altimeters are set. 29 and 902. Engine instruments all okay, no red flags. That would indicate an electrical failure of some sort. Brake system select, keep in normal system B. We also do have alternate hydraulic system C as well. Just stuff to keep in mind. And you can come over to the first officer's side and test out all his instruments as well. Also, AFCS modes, we are going to turn the flight directors on, like so. And yeah, let's dial in 6,000 feet and set that to the arm position, like so. On the iniBuilds L-1011, I haven't seen this arm switch over here. But of course, every L-1011 is different. And the L-1011, such as the Stargazer, actually has the arm switch over here. Another thing that the iniBuilds won't have is the approach, which arms VOR lock and ILS together. Okay, so let's set our heading. So runway 27 left, which I believe the heading is 269. So let's set that over here. Go ahead and select. And yeah, what else? We'll set our takeoff performance later. Also, yeah, we're flying the Crompton SID, so we're going to dial in the London VOR 113.60 and our course 256. Like so, and on the right hand side, for good measure, I'll put in the Crompton VOR 114.35 and put in the course of 282. that's all good. So all we need to do now is I think we're done, and we can come over here as well, test our weather radar and so on. So if I turn the weather radar to test, for example, you'll see the test pattern over here. It's quite a cool feature. Even the iniBuilds L-1011 has a weather radar as well. So quite cool. I'm going to turn it off because it's affecting my frame rate. And yeah, ADFs I'm going to set for the Woodley NDB 352. On both sides. Right, so radios and all that, not going to worry too much about for the time being. And yeah, so before we go, I'm going to just turn on the strobe light, anti-collision light, and let's put the floodlights on as well. The INS, so we can also just check the loading once more and keep ourselves on waypoint 1 for now. Okay, so time for the pushback, and so what we're going to do is I'm going to turn on my boost pumps. We're going tank to engine today, so nothing so special. So just turn them all on, and yeah, let's prepare for the pushback. An interesting thing that iniBuilds did was they turned off the cross bleeds, like so, and they left the center one on, and that was quite strange actually, but we'll have to see if that is actually standard practice or not. Whether starting engine number 2 is standard. So let us do that then. Start number 2. So going to the overhead, we can use either ignition A or B. Let's do ignition A, and let's start number 2. Also, let's go brakes release, start the pushback. I'm just waiting for 20%, then I'm going to introduce the fuel. There we go, fuel on. Engine number 2 is running. And then what they did in the stream was they went over here, and then they opened the cross bleeds, and then they turned on 1 and 3. Okay, so starting number 1. Just waiting for 20%. There we go, 20% fuel on. There we go, engine number 1. And finally, engine number 3. Okay, 20% fuel on. And there we go, number 3 is alive. Okay, let's extend flaps. Flaps 10 for takeoff, like so. Oops. Okay, flaps are 10 for takeoff, and just checking that we are over here as well. And let's do our flight control checks. So, whoops. There we go. Flight control checks. We're going to do push down. We're going to pull up, full left, check, neutral check, right check, and rudders are checked. Okay, we got a few more comments in the chat. One is this in P3D or FSX? Well, this is P3D. The FSX one, it looks much worse. And I can't wait for the fictional Aeroflot livery of this plane. I remember the Captain Sim version had it. It did, and I actually saw it in the Ace Manager as well. And I hope it does come out. It's a really nice livery. If you want, I can show you the flight control check on the outside. All looks good. And now we just need to close up. So coming over here, we can check our Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3 outputs. Yep, and they're all within limits. You can automatically see that the generator tie breakers are closed and the fields also closed. The galley power somehow tripped off, so let's turn them back on. And on the iniBuilds version, this is something that I saw in disagreement. So the guy needed to close these individually, which is something that I'm not seeing on the Captain Sim version or on the Just Flight version. So I'm going to trip the APU now, and the generators, engine-driven generators, have taken over. And yeah, you can also check the temperature rise for the IDGs, all checks out. And all we need to do now is let's toggle off the external power. Now we need to shut down the APU. So proceeding to APU shutdown, we're going to shut off the APU air like so. And now we're going to press the APU stop button. There we go, the APU is shutting down. And always turn off the bleed before you actually turn off the APU. Coming over here to the packs, we can restore them. So put the packs flow back on. Notice the turbine bypass coolers have transitioned from the 11 o'clock position to the 1 o'clock position. That is normal behavior. Turning our air turbine motors back to auto. That all checks out. Hydraulic pressure is checked. You can also turn on trim air as well, like so. And there we go, that's the pneumatics done. Electrics, finally just need to turn off the master power once we're satisfied with ourselves that the APU is shut down. Fuel is all checked. You can do fuel use to reset also if we wanted to. There we go. And yeah, all checks out. You can also see the slat monitor is working. And yeah, everything's good. So let us start the taxiing. There's one more light over here. Anti-skid. So the moment we release the parking brakes, there we go, anti-skid is automatically armed. We don't actually have auto brakes on this TriStar, so that's quite interesting. Anyway, so let's start the taxi then. So you got a comment in the chat. I have a friend who uses the Captain Sim version, and it is quite a nice plane. That's quite nice actually. And the Captain Sim version is definitely a good one. Not like how you think of Captain Sim today with Microsoft and all that. This is actually when they were really good. Made good add-ons. We can also check our ground speed, INS. Ensure that we don't go too fast. Okay, so while we're taxiing along quite nicely, let us also set up our takeoff performance. So going to the V1 page, like so, I have a nice V1 card. So takeoff and landing, flaps 10, optimum altitude, optimum APU. So we got a 1.513, which is already set for us. So we have, what do we have? V1, V2 stab trim, 5.7 units. So let us set that in. There you go. And we have a V1 128, rotate 130, V2 145, and V2 plus 15 has automatically been bugged in as 160. Let's turn the taxi lights on, runway turn-offs on. Put the landing lights on as well, so that's all good. It's quite a difficult aircraft to taxi, I must say. It's quite... So just taxiing our way to runway 27 left. Let's switch to the outside view. So coming up to the interesting part, the takeoff. And since this is a flight test, let's do a couple more systems tests while we're at it. Let's do autopilot engagement test. Autopilot 2. And once we're in the air, we'll do a couple more tests. So if you just join the live stream, you'll know that we'll do a couple more tests. We'll do alternate gear, test out the hydraulics quite rigorously, and also check out other systems as well, the DLC and another cool quirky features that I'm going to introduce you to. So you can see it didn't actually take me too long to start up the L-1011, and if I wasn't explaining it, you know, it would be even quicker. So we're coming onto the runway. Let's start the chrono. Okay, so one more feature I want to introduce you to before we start is the toggle switch. Now you might wonder where that is, and the toggle switch is over here. So if we come over here, we press it. It's on the yoke. It gives us flight director guidance for the takeoff to maintain V2 plus or whatever you dialed over here. So that's quite a useful feature that you can show off to your friends when you go on the iniBuilds L-1011. I saw this switch on the iniBuilds live stream as well, but the host elected not to use it. So now you know how to use it. It's a flight director mode. Anyway, so let's get started for the takeoff. Just a cursory glance. everything's okay. And yeah, also I want to check that my speed brakes are in the armed position. We have the auto disarm light over here, which if I pressed it, this then disables the speed brakes, the RTO speed brakes, the AG what? AGS auto ground spoilers, and the DLC as well. So if I was to go like say reverse thrust, the spoilers, as you see, they don't extend now automatically because we've just gotten rid of the RTO. So pretty handy feature. So make sure it's armed basically, like so. If I was to do the test again, you would then see the speed brakes automatically deploying with the reverse thrust and for ejector takeoffs, etc. So let us start the takeoff rule. So yeah, I also checked out the auto ground spoilers in op light. So it needs to be in the armed position basically. So that's when it's disarmed and that's when it's armed. And the DLC also disables that, so you need to cycle them back on, like so. And that's cleared out all the warnings. Okay, so let's go. So spooling up. Okay, about 50% and applying takeoff thrust. Okay, 60 knots, airspeed alive. 80 knots, cross-checked. 100 knots. Okay, V1 and rotate. Okay, positive rate, gear up. Just maintaining flight directors. Really nice view out there, the L-1011 in the climb. Okay, let's go climb thrust. Let's pull back ever so slightly. And at 3,000 feet, we will accelerate to 250 knots. Okay, so coming up at 3,000 feet, I'm going to go to vertical speed and dial ourselves down. And just follow the flight directors as we do so. And start to accelerate. Also landing gear up, lights off and neutral. There we go. And the 258 radial should be coming up anytime now. Got a couple of comments in the chat. And yeah, let's turn towards the 258 radial. You can also go heading select and align ourselves accordingly. It says I fly 7 days a week, old school aircraft like the L-1011, the Lockheed Constellation, DC-6, MD-80, MD-11, Boeing 307, DC-3. So wow, quite a classic aircraft selection you got there. Exactly what I do actually. And at London 7 DME, we'll start making our way towards Woodley. Coming up on 250 knots. We can also retract our flaps, so I kept them extended so long. There we go, flaps up. You can also see when you retract the gear. I'll show you later when we do our flight test. Coming up on 250 knots. Let's select autopilot 1, go IAS hold, like so, and let's go straight to the prompt. Let's actually skip the Woodley now, let's just go straight to Crompton, 114.35, adjust our course as appropriate, and our heading to track the course. Okay, we're past 6,000 feet. We can go, let's say we're cleared up to like our cruising altitude now. So let's go there. No wasting time. We can also come over here to the flight engineer's deck, check our cabin pressurization. Cabin altitude is slowly rising. It's about 4,000 feet right now. A very spacious cockpit. So we're above 10,000 feet. I can now accelerate further. So just going to vertical speed, dialing ourselves down. Let's retract the landing lights. There we go. You can put the seatbelt sign, no smoking, off. Coming up on 300 knots, I'll go IAS hold again. Can also follow our INS, so if we go over here, we can track our first waypoint. So and we can also then set the selector from VOR to FMS. Also, you need to remain on heading select for that purpose, because the INS is now controlling our heading. Also on the iniBuilds TriStar there is a RAD INS switch, which mine actually doesn't have, which is quite disappointing. Anyway. So we're steadily climbing, and very shortly altitude alert should come up and we'll just level off at 25,000 feet. As you can see, the INS is, oh, we've leveled off for 25,000 feet. Let's engage auto throttle. And there we go. It's pulling back for the cruise. Okay, so I think it's time to start our flight testing now. And I'm going to do a couple of exciting tests. So the first thing I want to do is test out the gear, alternate gear test. So coming over here to the AHCS, I'm going to slow ourselves down. So about 190 knots for the test. So let's do that now. So slowing down, and we're going to extend the alternate gear system. There we go, so let's drop the alternate gear. So to do that, we need to come down over here. This is probably something that a lot of you guys don't know. So there's a secret compartment over here, which I'm going to check whether the iniBuilds has it. And I'm going to pull all three handles now. There we go, handles are pulled. And the gear is extending. So, yep, the alternate gear system works. Also checking the lights. One gear down has been achieved and 2 doors in transit are still showing. And you do need to be quite slow actually to... I did get an alpha speed indication over here, so that generally happens when... Same like alpha protection on other aircraft. So to go down to 190 knots, I extended the slats. So as you can see, we achieved the alternate gear system. More or less, the the doors, two of the doors are not fully locked, but for the most part the gear is down and the test is successful. So just gonna accelerate back and retract everything. The next test I want to do is actually I want to do another test, so I'm going to do the slat lock test, so just bear with me. So if you come over here, you can see the speed at which we can extend our slats is 250 knots actually, so we're well within range, and the slat lock monitor is okay. So what I'm going to do now is going to shut off the hydraulic pressure to the slats, like so, and now I'm going to try and retract them, and they shouldn't. As you can see, the slats are still extended, and the moment I disengage this, it'll go back to its normal position. There we go, so we checked the slats, all checks out. And another test I want to do is, of course, I want to get my gear back up first. So I'm going to go over here, disarm the systems, and get the gear back up. There we go, so gears up. Another thing I want to test out now is the hydraulics. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to simulate failures now. So I'm going to shut off the engine-driven hydraulics for system system B, and we're going to see the air-driven automatically take precedence. There we go. Low pressure, but the air-driven pump has automatically taken over, as you can see over here. And if I was to turn this off as well, then the air-driven pump is off and we've lost hydraulics to system B. You can also do the same thing but for system C, so turn off the engine-driven pump and we're automatically restored by the air-driven pump over here. So that all checks out, the auto system is working as intended. Another system we can try out is the AC driven pump. So if I turn these two on and I turn off the air driven pumps, now we do have about 1000 psi available for the inboards. So we've tested all our hydraulics for systems B and C. What about for A and D? So if I was to, for example, turn off the engine-driven pump for system A, I can turn on the PTU and we've restored power to system A. Similarly, if I offload the engine-driven pump for system D, turn on the PTU, we have hydraulic power. So quite a lot of redundancy on this aircraft. Another system let's test out is the DLC, so let us slow down and go flaps 30. You'll see the DLC automatically coming on. So we're going flaps 30 and let's slow ourselves down a bit further. We've gone into alpha protection. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to disconnect the autopilot. I'm going to check out the DLC. So if you see over here, if I now push down, you can see the spoilers have extended. Similarly, if I pull up, they retract. So quite a neat system. If I zoom in closer, you'll see even better. So it's quite a neat system. Anyway, so let us now engage the autopilot again. Another thing I want to show you is that if you lose hydraulics to systems A and B, you lose your DLC as well. And that's because the DLC is powered by a power assist feature, which is powered by systems A and B. So if I was to turn off the air-driven pump for B and turn off system B's engine-driven pump, okay, just recovering from a stall, and that's what we'll be doing later as well, our stall test. Let's go altitude hold, and yeah. So what I was saying is if I depressurized hydraulic system B, you can then see the DLC is showing up here, it's failed. So you lose your auto spoiler system 2 DLC. And similarly, if I was to depressurize hydraulic system A, then I don't have DLC at all. So if I try to move it, nothing should happen. So the DLC is powered by hydraulic systems A and B. So if I restore them now I have to cycle them in order to get rid of the DLC fail warning. So that's the DLC tested out. You can also see on the spoilers here the range for the DLC, and also over here as well. Another thing I want to show you is if I do the auto speed brake disarm, so I push that in like so, I lose my DLC capability. So if I try to now manipulate the elevators, I don't have DLC. You can also see the warning over here as well, so that's a good test. Okay, so let's accelerate now. We'll go back to about 250 knots and we'll do the rest of our tests. Okay, so just leveling off at 20,000 feet, and I'm going to speed up to about 250 knots for the next test. Well, hello there, Air Holland. How are you doing? You're just in time for one of the more interesting tests that I was going to do, and that's going to be the stall test and the course wheel steering test. So another test I want to do is the autopilot modes. Okay, so we have two modes over here. We have oh dear, you got the flu. I'm quite sorry to hear that. Hope you recover soon. So, and takes quite a toll actually, this flu. It's kind of annoying. So basically the autopilot system here, we have off and command, and we have course wheel steering. So course wheel steering is basically where you can maintain pitch hold up to about 20 degrees and bank hold up to 35 degrees. So if I go to course wheel steering now, and if I deselect the other modes, I want to show you the aircraft is kind of like an Airbus. It doesn't allow you to bank more than 35 degrees. So let's try that out. So I'm going to bank left now. And look at that. It doesn't allow you to bank more than 35 degrees either way. So now let's try banking to the right. See, despite full protection, full deflection, we're still not banking any further. So that's really interesting actually. And let me show you what happens if you disconnect that. So if I disconnect it, it'll allow me to bank as much as I want. It is a very good looking aircraft, isn't it? It's got 3 engines. So now another interesting feature is if you turn off the autopilot and you bank to more than 35 degrees, it'll actually return you back to 35 degrees. So it's a bit like an Airbus. So let's do that. So let's roll over to about 90 degrees and let's engage course wheel steering. It's automatically returned the aircraft to a bank of 35 degrees. Similarly, if I was to do so the other direction, it's automatically returned me back to 35 degrees. It can also do pitch hold, so let's say I want to maintain pitch of 20 degrees. So I can engage course wheel steering and I can pull up to 20 degrees nose up, and if I let go of the yoke, it's still using electric trim to maintain 20 degrees. So it's quite a nice feature actually, coarse wheel steering. It can maintain pretty much bank angles up to 35 degrees and pitch up to 20 degrees. It's kind of handy feature. You can also test autopilot 2 coarse wheel steering, so it won't allow you to bank more than 35 degrees. And if I was to disengage it, then I lose the protection. Also, let's check out the other autopilot modes. Let's go altitude hold. The aircraft should then maintain that altitude. We've already tested auto throttles and so on. The model I'm using is the Captain Sim L-1011. Now, when you hear about Captain Sim, you think, oh dear, it's not a very good add-on. But actually, this was during the time when they used to make very good add-ons. And this one luckily got updated all the way to P3D version 5. And it's much better than the Just Flight L-1011. That one has some issues, especially the DLC. So another feature, in case any of my viewers they missed it because they were away, I want to show you the alternate landing gear test. So if I spool down to about 190 knots, that should be enough to get the alternate gear down. So the alternate gear is actually located in a very interesting location. There's a hiding spot for it. It's actually down here, this compartment. So if I open this compartment over here, we have 3 levers. So if I pull them up like so, there we go. The alternate gear is coming down. It's a pretty handy feature, and I'm not sure if everyone knew that or not. So I just wanted to show you all again. So now if I disarm the system like so and command the gear to go back up, okay, so let's do another test. Let's do the stall test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first stall in the clean configuration and then stall in the landing configuration. So I'm going to disengage the auto throttle now. I'm going to apply full power and pitch up to about 20 degrees until the aircraft stalls. Let me actually first gain 250 knots, because in P3D when an aircraft stalls, it just drops out of the sky very fast. It's not like an X-plane, how it was so hard to stall the aircraft. Okay, so let's pitch up to 20 degrees. And let's bring the power back a little bit to help me out. Okay, we're in the stall. Okay, I'm going to recover now. Okay, wow. That was exciting. Okay, we've recovered from the stall and I lost, wow, a lot of altitude. Might have nearly crashed there. So, as you can see, I'm not going to do any more stall tests because that was a close one. In P3D, when an aircraft stalls, it really drops out of the sky. So let us now do IAS hold climb out, and that was a close one. Another test I want to do before we actually land is, let's see, I want to show you how to do a relight. So for example, if you, I know it's, did you see how I almost crashed? It was very much different compared to the Fearless 747 in X-Plane. That one was like so hard to stall, and even when it did stall, it was only dropping at 500 feet per minute at best. This one was, it needed like such a nosedive in order to recover. And that's probably the difference in the flight model between X-Plane and P3D. In P3D, when an aircraft stalls, it really drops like a rock. So let us do the relight test now. So for example, if I was to shut off one of my engines, like so. So there we go, we lost engine number 3. So to relight it is quite simple. As you can see also for the electrics, we don't actually lose anything because all the bus ties are in parallel, so the other 2 generators are taken on the load. So all I need to do is just retard power to number 3, get the fuel lever up, and just do continuous relight. So let's go to flight start, like so. And there we go, number 3 is spooling back up. There we go, so number 3 is back in action. And if you go to the electrics over here, you can automatically see the gen tie breakers have closed, and that's it really. Nothing much to do about that. Even if you lost all 3 engines, you would be able to recover. It's quite a handy feature actually. So I'm going to take myself back towards my 3rd waypoint and we can do some more tests. So we did engine out test. Another test I want to do is the jettison of fuel. So we do actually have quite a lot of fuel, so let us do the test. So all you need to do really for fuel jettison is open up the master switch like so, and then just decide which tank you want to jettison out of. So let's say I wanted to jettison fuel out of tanks 1 and 3. I just have to turn on the override pumps, and there we go. We're spraying out fuel. And not again. So you can see the jettison process. Similarly, you can dump fuel out of the other tanks as well. And yeah, that's all there is to it really. So then just close them up like so. Allow those to drain and then turn off the jettison master. And yeah, you're all sorted out really. And I don't know why I stalled a second time. Maybe there's something strange going on, but yeah, doing stall tests in P3D is not ideal. Is there any other tests you want me to do? Anyone has any ideas, please let me know. Yeah, we can easily do tail engine failure. All I need to do is just cut it off. You can see the auto throttles automatically try to compensate for the loss of power. You can see some warnings over here relating to the hydraulics electrical system, because now you can see the load is being shared by generators 1 and 3. And whenever you're above 250 knots, you just need to go windmill start, that's all. And ensure your fuel switch is up. And the engine should just automatically spool back. And then once you're done, just deselect the continuous, flight start. Oh, if you want a total hydraulic failure, you can actually, and let me show you how you can actually start to deactivate spoilers and whatnot. So, if I was to go up here to the PFCS section, I can actually shut off hydraulics to my ailerons, like so. So now if I try to command the heading select, so if I go to heading select, and let's take ourselves off the FMS for now, and let's command the left turn, you can see the flight director is commanding a left turn, but we don't have any ailerons to do it. Similarly, try right turn and there's nothing you can do. So now we can re-engage them, and you'll see the aircraft is now able to, make its way. If you wanted to cut off hydraulics, I've done this earlier, but I can do again. You have your hydraulic systems over here, hydraulics A, B, C, and D. 2 PTUs over here, 2 air-driven pumps. So for example, if I wanted to offload the engine-driven pump to hydraulic system B, I turn it off, but automatically the pressure is restored because of the air-driven pump, which is on auto and automatically kicks in. A couple of things you can observe is the air turbine monitor has spooled up. That's how you know it's working. And also the high pressure bleed system flow bars are showing active because it's taking air from those. So that's how it works. And if I was to turn off the air driven pump, then you lose power to hydraulic system B. But you do also have AC driven pumps as well, which is this one. So if I turn that on, I still get 1000 psi out of this. So a lot of redundancy in hydraulics. Similarly, if I was to cut off hydraulic system C's engine driven pump, automatically the air driven pump takes over, air turbine monitor spooling up, high pressure bleeds are being utilized, and the aircraft is okay. Of course, if I was to shut both off, then you still have your AC driven pumps to help out as well. So quite a lot actually in the L-1011's hydraulic system. Similarly, if I lost my outboards, for example, say I lost hydraulics C and D, I offloaded the engine driven pumps like so. C and D have been offloaded, but if I turn on my PTUs that go from B to A and C to D, I've already restored all my hydraulics. So there's a lot of things that would have to go wrong for you to have a complete hydraulic system failure. And probably the only way for that to happen was if you were to actually lose your hydraulic fuel. I don't think there's any other way you would actually have a total hydraulic system failure on the L-1011. I can also disarm my high pressure bleeds as well. So now if I offload these, air turbine still works, but it's not able to take them from the high pressure system, which it would do normally, like so. Yeah, it's quite fun actually, playing around with the hydraulic systems of the L-1011. You can even play around with the electrics. If you come over here, you can trip out one generator and see the other two have taken precedence. If you trip this one, they're all in parallel, you see. So, and then if I trip this one, you can see how the third engine generator is taking on all the load, but also notice the galley power has automatically turned off. So this is an example of automatic load shedding. So it's quite an interesting system. So I just close them up again and I can turn on my galley power as well. Similarly, we have our essential bus over here. It's normally powered by bus tie number 3, but if I was to, for example, lose that, then it's automatically taking my power from Gen 1, which is in brackets, in parentheses. So if I was to lose Gen 1, like so, then that can cause problems for the essential bus. Okay, so engine 1, I've actually lost engine 1. That's why I lost generator 1. And I wonder if I click something or what, so let me just start it back up. So that's the electrics and hydraulics. And fuel is quite interesting. We can either draw fuel from the inboards or just keep it tank to engine. And the cross feeds, of course, they allow any tank to feed any engine. One final thing I want to check out is the spoilers. So, for example, if you deflect the spoilers, like so, you can actually disarm them by stowing them. This actually causes the spoilers to get stowed. So if I press the next one, okay, so fuel level is coming quite short. I'm going to open the cross feeds and going to prepare for a landing as soon as possible. Okay, gear down. I'm going to start landing now. So just coming up on the localizer, start to turn towards it. Gear down and locked. And let's set our final speed and get flaps 30. There we go, now the DLC is going to start doing its magic. And if I wanted to do an auto land at this point, I'll just hit auto land and engage the second autopilot. And there we go. Then that would be auto land armed. So you can see the auto land, I've gone 2 autopilots, but I want to do it manually today, so I'll be disconnecting them. But check out the flight modes. You have auto land, the alternate systems armed, the flares armed, and that's all good. You can see how the spoilers are working alongside with the tailplane. It's called the DLC.
Glide flow. Glide flow. Glide flow. Glide flow.
There we go, touchdown. I'm going reverse thrust. Well, thank you for the compliment. So we just landed right now at Manchester Airport, and as you saw, the auto ground spoilers, they did their work. So now I'm going to, oops, retract them. Can retract the flaps also. There we go. Can turn on the taxi lights, runway turn off. So now we'll just taxi over to the stand and do a shutdown. Flight directors are off. Another thing we can do if we wanted to start the APU, since we've vacated the runway, so master power on, APU start. You can see the APU is now on, and right now, and as we come to the stand, then we'll shut the engines off and the APU will take precedence. If you wanted to save fuel, for example, we could shut down the number 2. Oh, that's quite interesting. What makes you think it'll come out on Thursday next week? You think because it'll give people the opportunity to live stream it on Friday? Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense actually. So Thursday it is. So my next live stream I'll have to schedule then for Thursday. I've already got the thumbnail and the title, and it's sitting in my YouTube studio on the private and just waiting for it to drop, before I do the stream. So thank you for the hints actually. That's really helpful. Yeah, I know. I mean, There's no official update, but hints sometimes are quite nice. It's always good to be prepared, you know. Hello everyone, welcome to the chat. In case you just arrived, this is the end of today's L-1011 live stream, and just going to shut down the aircraft very quickly. So let's turn off the seatbelt signs, and yeah, there's not too much to do actually. We can, if we wanted to, turn off the window heats and so on to minimize electrical drain. And yeah, so coming over here, we can just ensure the APU is now powering the sync bus. We can turn APU air on as well. And we can now proceed for engine shutdown. Yeah, me too. I hope it's not really expensive. The add-on, that is. There we go, and we shut down our engines, and now we can just disembark. We can even turn the packs on as well. We need our air-driven pumps to be off, that's the reason why. There we go. And that's pretty much it actually, and we can also turn our mode selector units off as well. Yeah, and that's L-1011. We've done a full flight test today and did a couple of things. We tested out the alternate gear, the flaps, the stall warning, the autopilot, course wheel steering, not to mention we did a quick start tutorial and live systems Q&A for anyone who had any L-1011 questions. And in a few days time, in less than 10 days, I'll be doing the iniBuilds TriStar as well. And so stay tuned for that. And that's the end of today's live stream. Hope you enjoyed watching me fly the L-1011, and see you next time.